This is what I'm going to call the 5 elements of martial arts training after you've gotten the black belt level. Once you've got the black belt level and you're an instructor, you're no longer going to a regular instructor on a daily basis, you're no longer in the rank and file, you're probably the head instructor, or you're one of the assistant instructors that the head instructor relies on all the time. So you don't get to go over everything you need to do for yourself in class. In other words, you're at the point where you're more focused on others than yourself. Okay, so let me see if I can remember them all right off. It's stretching, flexibility, cardio, strength training, technique, and spirituality. Okay, so your first one, stretching, flexibility training. Okay, now I ran these ideas by a doctor, and the doctor put his first one for me, he puts that at number 2. And it's not as important as what my number 2 is. But regardless of that, in most martial arts, you have got to be flexible to do what you need to do. Even if the martial art doesn't require a lot of flexibility, you still have to be pretty flexible, or else you're going to have injury after injury. And after all, as we age, we become less flexible. So in order to continue to be spry, we need to have flexibility. Okay, the second element, which my doctor put at number 1 for your health, is cardio. You have to do some type of cardio training. Does this mean you need to be able to run in the Boston Marathon? No. Does this mean that you even need to jog? No. But you've got to do something that will keep your heart in cardio shape. Why? Because a lot of times, not all martial arts, but some martial arts can be pretty anaerobic. And that can lead you to neglect your aerobic exercise. So if you're doing your aerobic exercise and your heart's going okay, barring any type of, unforeseen or just bad genetics, it will prevent you from having a heart attack. You have to look at it like this. If you suffer a massive heart attack or a stroke, you're not going to be able to perform martial arts anyway. If you die because you didn't take care of your heart, you can't teach anymore. And I remember, what drove this home for me was at one point when I was a lot younger than I am now. I thought I was in really great shape and I had stopped jogging. But then when I would start going upstairs, or if I would run to catch the metro, I would be so winded. Then I did some research and I realized that what I had done, the type of training I was doing at the time, was anaerobic. It wasn't aerobic. So I had really great anaerobic endurance, but my aerobic endurance had went back to the level of a beginner. And that's not cool. And I noticed as I started competing, when I competed just locally, mind you, in judo tournaments, my anaerobic was good when I was just being thrown and eliminated after 1 or 2 matches. But in order to be able to place, and I usually placed, I didn't, win the overall thing, but I would place. But in order to be able to place consistently, you got to have good aerobic endurance. And some of those matches go on the full thing. They go on for the full 4 or 5 minutes. And then they're going to go on a golden score after that. So you could be out there grappling for about 10 minutes. And you're going to need aerobic endurance to continue going. I started talking to some of the people who would place higher than me, or place where I did. And one key difference was that they jogged more than I did. And that basically was it. They had better cardio. So if you have better cardio than your opponent, if everything else is equal, if they got the same technical application of them, maybe not the same technique, but their technical application is the same, cardio will win. Okay, moving along. Third element is strength. Again, this doesn't mean that you have to be able to bench press 300, 400, 500, 600 pounds. But you do have to be strong. The way I like to tell people is you have to be as strong as you can be. Why? Because I know we like to think we can just rely on technique and things like that. But you need to be strong enough to lift your arm up. You need to be strong enough to pick up a weapon. And if you could be so strong that you don't even have to use your technique on somebody, you could just intimidate somebody that's bothering you with your strength. That's an even better strategy, in my opinion. Now, here again, you don't have to lift a bunch of weights, but you should do some strength training. Some strength training is going to give you more energy and it's going to improve everything else. Okay? Now, the fourth element, which is what strength can improve, but you shouldn't overly rely on, is technique, your technical ability. We all know what that is. Practice your moves as much as you can. If you're in a form-based system, like the so-called striking arts, go through your forms at least once or twice a week. Go over those difficult moves that you hate to do. You know, you can do it with your students if your students are at the point where you don't have to babysit them. You know, if you're in judo, do your shadow fits. You know, work on those katas, work on that Nage no kata. You can even shadow that. You can go through uke by yourself and tori. Just do the tori part by yourself if you're in judo, okay? Do those forms, practice those weapons. You know, and then the technical ability, learn new forms. You know, read about the art, whatever. Do things to enhance your technique. If you're in Wing Chun, wooden dummy, wooden dummy, wooden dummy, wooden dummy training. Sticky hands. You know the drills. All right. And the last of the 5 elements is spirituality. Because after all, we're doing something very violent and warlike, whether you want to admit it or not. And if all you're thinking about is hurting people all the time, that could wreak havoc on your spiritual development. So you need the spirituality. You know, some people will just take that to mean just doing your key chi development. I would put the key chi development under technique. Just because it's invisible doesn't mean it's spiritual. Okay? You have to have a relationship with God, in my opinion. Some of you may not believe in God. That's fine. You may follow a religion that's not Judeo-Christian. But whatever it is, you should follow it because it's going to make you a better person. You know, you stick to your ideals. It's going to help you be a better teacher and help you be a better humanitarian. You know? One of my favorite martial artists of all time, Weishiba, I got the impression that he was pretty tight with God. Even though he didn't share my exact religious beliefs, he was a very spiritual person. You know, when you're dealing with matters of life and death, if you could die, and sometimes people have died in training, you know, whether by accident or they've died doing something martial. Don't you want your soul to be to the point where if you have to go, you can go to the Creator and be okay? Be ready to walk on in those gates? Of course. You know, the Bible has a verse that says, "Blessed be the Lord who trains my hands for war and teaches my fingers to fight." You can use your martial arts training as a way for you to gather the moral strength and courage to be a moral warrior in order to fight for what's right. So, those are my 5 elements of training for you when you're a black belt, head instructor, independent. They are flexibility, cardio, strength, technical ability, and spirituality.